Today on Outside the Box Reviews, we are going to be taking a look at the Mezco 112 Collective Freddy Krueger figure from A Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, if I remember correctly, I think I've only reviewed the Mezco 112 Frankenstein on this channel so far, but since picking him up, I have kind of dabbled in their horror line, particularly the big slasher characters. So I got Freddy, I got Jason, I got Michael Myers. And I have to say, I continually find this line to be an interesting one. I think Mezco has really hit on something very cool with what they're doing, having these cloth figures, but not going for that retro Mego style, but more going for a smaller Hot Toy style. So for most of these, it seems like we're getting premium stuff like we would with an import figure, and a lot of the same styling we would get with a 1/6 scale figure, which would be more traditionally something to use cloth clothing like this. So this Freddy is definitely based off the original movie. You could clearly tell that by the fact that he has the red sleeves on. Though I am surprised already that Mezco hasn't done variants of him with the striped sleeves and maybe a couple different accessories to give us like a part 3 or part 2 or something. But so far, I have yet to see them double dip on any of the horror figures outside of minor variants like Frankenstein's black and white version. For accessories, the figure comes with kind of the standard Mezco display base, which is a black base with kind of a hollow bottom and artwork from the film on the top. I will say that the one for Nightmare, of the ones I've owned, seems to be the most complex looking. They got the theatrical poster on there, and it's a lot more busy than some of the ones I've seen on some of the other figures. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I kind of prefer the more simplistic one, but I don't really know what the simplistic version of Freddy is. Is it just a picture of the glove or something? Both Friday the 13th and Halloween have more kind of simplistic poster options. Nightmare really didn't. So this might just be the best case scenario here. So we do see it has a peg sticking out that will go into either of Freddy's feet, but that can be popped out by pushing it from the back, which you might need a little assistance doing. And you can peg in their claw stand. So it's very similar to a Tamashii stage. This is a multi-armed stage or stand that has a little clip here at the front. You can rotate it up here at the head and clamp that around the figure's waist. To me, this is a bit messy looking. For a superhero or something, this could be cool, but for the horror figures, I feel like it's just fine having that peg because I don't really think of Freddy as needing to do massive leaps and stuff. So a little overkill for what I want, but it's an option. I guess if we're talking accessories, we should mention that they do give us a bag to hold your accessories in if you don't want to keep them in the box. Kind of similar to what Figma does. As for actual figure-related accessories, we get the trash can lid from, I think it was Tina's Dream, if I remember correctly. An accessory we saw with the old Mezco Freddy release back in the Cinema of Fear line. So kind of bringing it full circle that we get it with this new highly detailed version. We get a surprising number of hands for accessories. We have a standard Freddy glove here with kind of a open claw design. Paint on here is not perfect. You can see there's a lot of like brass chipping away there at the top of the brown fingers. And he has the nice silvery claws on there. You do see detailing of his actual hand on the underside, which is nice. And the gloves stop kind of at the base of the hand, and he has the wrist part of the cuff of the glove staying with the figure itself. We also get kind of a pointing or gesturing glove with 3 fingers down and then 1 finger pointing out. Similar detail to the other one. Then we get 4 options for his burnt hand. So kind of a grasping kind of hand. I don't know what you want to call that. A more relaxed hand, a fist, and then the effect hand where he actually is cutting off the fingers and spurting out his green blood. All of them have all the burn textures detailed in, looking very nice. I don't think the green is translucent, but it does have a nice effect going on there. We have none coming out of the one finger and then a big spurt coming out of the other. As I mentioned before, there you could see the cuff there that kind of floats on his wrist peg. So to put the hands in, you just peg them right on there. It's a tight fit, but that's kind of a good thing. Just be careful with it because obviously that is quite a tiny peg, so you do definitely want to be a little bit careful. Freddy also comes with a pretty good selection of heads. So these are all head and neck assemblies together. So we have this creepy smiling one, which looks really good. See all the appropriate swords. It also has a nice kind of shiny texture to it. Give him that burnt latex look. We could, of course, pop the hat off there. The hat is its own piece, kind of a solid plastic, not really squishy at all, but it fits on the head pretty nicely. And I do like that they actually included some like weathering, like the little rip in the sash there, just on something so small. But now you can see the rest of the wounds there on his head, and it it definitely looks really nice. It has a great feel, really invokes the look of that original Freddy, so I can appreciate that. So we could just pop that head off, and we could pop on his serious, kind of scowling face. Another great expression, really captures that Robert Englund look for me. He just looks so over these teenagers' shit. I love it. Could also pop on this, I guess, kind of angry one. The way his eyes look, it almost looks a little bewildered, but again, I think it works pretty well for the character. This is definitely a facial expression I could see Freddy making. And then last but not least, we have this weird kind of grimacing face going on here, which the expression's odd, but it doesn't really matter because it's really just for the effect of being able to peel his face off and get the skull face underneath. Another thing to me that harkens back to their old Cinema Fear figure, I think theirs was much bloodier and gorier looking, but this is great. I love the kind of bug-eyed expression with the skull face going on there. It works pretty darn well. It's not something I'd have him posed with that often, but I do appreciate that he comes with it. So going down from the head, we have his sweater, and I feel like the camera washes out a little bit of the grime to it because it definitely has a kind of brown texturing to it to give it a dirty look. The sleeves don't have quite as much of that. I wish they had a little more dirt on them. There's a little bit kind of down by the wrists on him, but really not as much as I would really want on this figure, but the stripes that are there are pretty darn clean. The sweater itself isn't bad for something being this small. I was a little apprehensive that it would look bulky. If you remember the old Sideshow figures, I feel like their sweaters never really fit right, but this actually does seem to fit on Freddy pretty well and hangs relatively naturally for something so tiny. Spin around to the back, some more of that dirt on there as well, but pretty much the same story going on here. If we go a little further down, we've got his brown pants, pretty plain in the back there. We do have like the pleat going up the side of the leg, and then still pretty plain there at the front. And then down at the very bottom, we have his boots, which I wish were a little more detailed. They're pretty lacking in paint. It has a little bit of a darker sole, but the upper part of the boot is all just kind of a uniform brown, and it would have been nice to have some like silver eyelets, maybe different color laces on it or something. There is some nice detail. You can see all the different seams and stitches there in the shoes. So they look really nice in terms of the sculpt. They just could have been painted a bit better. But overall, I think they are entirely serviceable for what this figure is. It's worth mentioning that while the sculpt for Freddy stops at his neck, it's pretty well hidden by the collar of the shirt, but on either arm, his entire forearms are actually sculpted and scarred and painted. So if the sweater pulls back when you're getting a pose, you're not going to lose that illusion of him being burnt, which is really fantastic. Even some of the higher end, I think the Sideshow figure, the most recent one of Freddy, didn't do this. I think if you pull his sleeve back, I'm pretty sure it's just bare flesh. So fantastic attention to detail there on Mezco's part. Also with the boot, if you pull the pant leg up, you can see it is a full boot. It goes pretty far up his leg, as opposed to just being a shoe that dissolves into the pant leg. So detail is there that you may never actually even really pay attention to if you're not messing with the figure too much, but it definitely allows for some forgiveness with posing and getting it to still look the way it's supposed to look, which is absolutely wonderful. For articulation, Freddy has a pretty good range. There is a ball joint at the base of the neck, so you can look decently far down and not really quite so up. You can also rotate his head side to side as well as pivot in all directions. The arms can go forward, backwards, as well as out to the side, well more than 90 degrees, which is fantastic. I think he has a butterfly joint in here as well, it feels like, or at least some kind of double ball joint system, so he can reach relatively far across his body, which is also nice. We have feels like an upper bicep rotation, nice double jointed elbow there, letting him bend in nearly to touching the upper arm. You can rotate at the wrist as well as hinge. It's a hinge similar to a lot of import figures where it can kind of go one direction, you could move it around to get it facing in different directions, so you could have him in all kinds of creative poses. That's true on both hands. A little less hindered here on his ungloved hand, just because it doesn't have that extra wrist piece going on there. We have a mid-torso ball joint, so you can go pretty far forward, pretty far back, twist side to side and lean side to side while I'm becoming Diego Doom by accident here. You can rotate there at the waist. It's basically a ball joint as well. So all those ranges of motion given to you once again there. The legs will kick forward, they'll kick back, they'll go out to the side. He has an upper leg rotation, double jointed knees going almost all the way back to kick himself in the ass. And then the foot is on a ball joint, so we'll go just a little bit forward back, a little side to side, a little bit of pivot. Not the greatest range of motion there, but with Freddy, I'm not quite as concerned as I would be with another character where they're going to be doing more dynamic poses. And I guess I missed, there is a rotation there at the very top of the boot itself where it connects to the leg. For a size comparison, here is Fredward next to a SH Figuarts Vegeta, which I'm now thinking is probably a bad choice because I think he's supposed to be kind of a shorter figure, and I don't remember if this one is offhand or not, but you can see he's definitely taller than him, but he definitely stands shorter than a NECA Freddy. This is the old Freddy's Dead Bobby England figure, and the more I look at this, the more I'm like, why did I pick Vegeta for this figure comparison? He looks goofy as hell in that lineup. So let's pull him away and just focus on these two guys here. And I think these are interesting, not just from a scaling perspective, but just from a detailing perspective. Obviously, I probably should have grabbed the NECA original Nightmare Freddy, but a lot of the figures, at least in the early releases, shared the same body, so it's pretty similar. And NECA definitely has a kind of grimier look to their sweater. One thing I do wish Mezco had done a little more with this one. It is a little bright, especially with these lights on. But I have to say, there's something about the way the costume hangs off of him using actual cloth that gives it a really cool look and definitely elevates it over what NECA did. Now, granted, this is a more expensive figure than what NECA did by far, but it's interesting to see what you get for the extra money. I really enjoy this figure. I honestly hadn't really played with all of his accessories up until today. I was kind of in a rush when I initially picked him up. I pulled him out of the package. I swapped him over to that bloody hand version with the other knife hand where it looked like he was cutting off his fingers, and kind of stuck him on my shelf and left him there. And even to do this review, I had to unpackage a couple of his spare heads because I hadn't even tried them out or really given them much of a look. But this figure is really well done. I've really been enjoying what Mezco's been doing. I am very picky with the ones I pick up because a lot of the ones I am interested in, I have other figures of in several different lines. So I don't want to go crazy with the line. But so far what I've gotten from them, I've really enjoyed. And Freddy is no exception. Honestly, overall with this figure, my biggest gripe is the fact that his sweater is a little too clean. Even the pants being a dark brown, I don't feel it as bad, even though I don't think there's really a whole lot of dirt and debris on them as well, but they're already dark, so it's easier to ignore. But the sweater, especially like I said, under this harsh lighting, does tend to just look a little neon red and not like somebody's been living in a boiler room in hell for years. So that would be my one gripe. If they were to go and do a Nightmare 3 version of Freddy with the striped arms and the slightly different head sculpt, I would definitely be in for that. I think that would be a fantastic release. However, I'm not sure the state of the rights for Nightmare stuff right now. I know Friday the 13th is in indefinite limbo while their lawsuit goes on. I believe Nightmare on Elm Street, the rights just reverted back to Wes Craven's estate, so I assume it should be relatively easy if you can get whoever's in charge of his estate on board to greenlight new figures to go ahead and make new Freddy stuff. Jason is a bit more contested, so he's having a little harder time with this whole new law enactment thing. Actually, I'm not sure how new the law is. I just know it recently came up for both of these guys. But yeah, I do hope Mezco has the opportunity to make at least one more Freddy in the future. I was thinking a Freddy vs. Jason 2-pack would be something I'd really enjoy, but once again, Jason, we may not be getting anything for him for quite a while now. But anyway, I do recommend this figure. I guess it's a qualified recommend only because we have gotten a lot of Freddys in a lot of different scales over the years. Sideshow's done multiple ones in 1/6 scale, including a pretty recent one that I think is decent quality. NECA, of course, has done tons and tons of Freddys. So if you're collecting heavily at a different scale, you may not need this guy. He may just be a weird outlier on your shelf. Not to mention, NECA's also been making the bigger Mego style ones, which I've never really been a fan of. Those are ones where the sweater looks weird to me. It looks way too bulky, something that Mezco has managed to avoid at a smaller scale, because remember, the NECA ones are bigger than their plastic action figures. But yeah, giving this guy a solid recommend. In a world full of Freddy figures, he's yet another good one. So let me know in the comments below, what other horror figures do you want to see coming from the Mezco 112 line? I think personally, if there was no limitations, I think I would love to see what they would do with a Part 7 Jason. I think a New Blood Jason could rock with this style of figure. Probably also be very expensive because it'd be a fully sculpted figure with cloth on top of it, but it would be damn cool. This has been another Outside the Box review. I will see you guys next time. Later.